Betrayal. My daughter wed and didn't invite me to her wedding. My husband hates you, he thinks you're pathetic. So I cancelled her honeymoon, sold her home, and fully cut off all contact with her. Imagine being told you're pathetic by your own daughter, just after discovering she secretly married the man who despises you. My heart didn't just break that day, it shattered into a million irreparable pieces. How could a bond one thought was unbreakable unravel so completely? The sterile silence of my office often felt like a refuge, but that Tuesday, even the hum of the old computer couldn't drown out the ringing in my ears. I still remember the cold, metallic taste in my mouth, a prelude to the devastating truth I was about to uncover. To truly understand the gut-wrenching pain of that moment, you need to know the man I am, the father I've been. My name is William, I'm 52, and 15 years ago, my world stopped when my beloved wife, Grace, died in a car accident. She left me alone with our precious 11-year-old daughter, Chloe. From that moment on, it was just me and Chloe against the entire world. And let me tell you, I poured every single ounce of my being into making sure she had everything she ever needed, and then some. I worked 2 jobs for years, kissing goodbye to my social life, my dating life. Hell, I sacrificed everything for Chloe. I wanted her to have the childhood, the opportunities, that she deserved. When she dreamed of piano lessons, I somehow found the money, even when our budget was tighter than a drum. When she set her sights on an expensive private college to study art history, I took out loans, worked grueling overtime shifts, never once letting out a single complaint. Her happiness? That was my whole world. I was there. For every recital, every parent-teacher conference, every teenage heartbreak, every small triumph. And when she finally graduated 3 years ago, I did something truly insane. I bought her a house. An actual house. It cost me $230,000, basically every penny of my life savings, because I wanted her to have security, a solid start in life. I wanted her to feel safe, loved. So, you can probably imagine how it felt last Tuesday. I was scrolling through Facebook on my coffee break, just trying to unwind, when I saw it. A photo of Chloe. In a wedding dress. Kissing some guy named Trent, a man I'd only met twice, with the caption, "Best day of my life, married to my soulmate." My hand started shaking so violently, I almost dropped my phone. Married? My daughter got married? And I, her father, found out on social media? Like some distant acquaintance? It was a punch to the gut. I called her immediately. 5 times. The phone just rang and rang, each tone amplifying the growing dread in my chest. Finally, she picked up. Her voice was ice cold. Irritated. Like I was some minor inconvenience. "What do you want, Dad?" she said. What do I want? I could barely choke out the words. What the hell is going on? Why wasn't I invited to your wedding? Why didn't you even tell me you were engaged? There was a long, excruciating pause. Then a sigh, heavy with dismissiveness. Trent didn't want you there, Dad. He thinks you're pathetic. Always trying to control my life. And honestly, she added, her voice chillingly calm, I agree with him. The words hit me like a physical blow. A brutal, agonizing strike right to my core. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Couldn't process what I was hearing. Pathetic? Chloe, everything I've ever done, it's been for you, I managed, my voice cracking, fragile. But she just responded with that dismissive tone she'd perfected since dating Trent. I knew you'd make this about you. I'm 26 years old. I don't need your approval anymore. I told her I was coming over. We needed to talk face to face. I drove straight to the house I had bought her, the one that was technically still in my name because we'd never gotten around to transferring the deed. When I arrived, Trent opened the door. That smirk. God, I always hated that smirk. This tall guy, late 20s, always bragging about his leased BMW. Oh, it's you, he said, not even bothering to fake politeness. When I said I needed to talk to Chloe, he actually put his hand on my chest, physically blocking my entry. She doesn't want to talk to you, man. You need to learn some boundaries. That's when Chloe appeared behind him, looking at me with annoyance mixed with what might have been a flicker of guilt. Dad, why are you here? I told you on the phone how things are, she said, crossing her arms defensively. I begged to talk to her alone, just us, like we used to. No, she cut me off. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Trent. He's my husband now. The way she emphasized husband felt like a deliberate stab. I tried to explain that I didn't understand. That we used to be so close. That I'd always supported her. I just wanted to know what I did wrong. Trent actually laughed. You really don't get it, do you, old man? You're suffocating. Always acting like she owes you something just because you're her dad. I never said she owed me anything. I just want to be part of her life. I protested, my voice rising. But he just got louder, more aggressive. Well, she doesn't want you in her life anymore. So why don't you take the hint and leave? Chloe just stood there. Arms crossed. Not defending me. Not telling him to back off. Just watching, like I was a stranger causing a scene. Chloe, please. Talk to me. Don't let him speak for you, I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper. But Trent stepped fully in front of her. She already told you how she feels. Now get the hell out of here before I make you leave. Make me leave? You're going to make me leave the house that I bought for my daughter? My anger, finally, flared. Trent shot back, a sneer on his face. Oh, here we go with the I bought you everything speech. You're such a typical narcissistic parent. That's when Chloe spoke up. And her words destroyed me completely. Because I knew you'd try to talk me out of marrying Trent. You never liked him. You always thought you knew what was best for me, and I'm sick of it. I don't need your approval anymore. I just wanted to be there for one of the most important days of your life. I said, tears blurring my vision. Her response was cold, devoid of any warmth. Well, you weren't invited, and the wedding was perfect without you. So maybe that tells you something. Trent put his arm around her possessively, a triumphant look in his eyes. You heard her, old man. Your time is done. I'm her family now. She doesn't need a pathetic, controlling father anymore. There was that word again. Pathetic. And this time, Chloe didn't contradict him. Didn't defend me. Just stood there, under his arm, looking at me like I was the villain. Chloe, please, I whispered one last time. Just go, Dad. And then Trent did it. He literally pushed me. Shoved me backward off the porch. I stumbled, caught myself, and for a split second, a primal rage surged through me. I considered fighting back. But when I looked at Chloe's face, when I saw that she wasn't even upset that her husband had just assaulted her father, I knew. It was over. I walked back to my car, got in, and sat there for 5 minutes. Shaking. Crying. Trying to process the utter devastation. As I drove home, something inside me began to change. The raw hurt, the crushing sadness, started to crystallize. It hardened. It turned cold. 15 years. 15 years I'd spent sacrificing everything for Chloe. And this was my repayment? He chose some manipulative jerk who convinced her that her own father was the enemy. That night, I sat in my home office, a bottle of whiskey for company. I started making a list. Every financial commitment. Every legal document that still had my name on it. The house, still officially mine. The honeymoon to the Maldives, I'd secretly booked and paid for it, a €15,000 surprise. There was the joint bank account, where I'd deposited €500 monthly for years, now totaling around €20,000. And all the monthly bills I still paid, her phone, car insurance, streaming subscriptions. As I stared at that list, something became brutally clear. If I was pathetic for caring, if I was controlling for trying to be part of her life, then I needed to step back. Completely. Let Chloe and Trent figure out life on their own. Without my interference. The whiskey burned, but a strange clarity settled over me. The kind that only comes when you've been hurt so badly that something fundamental breaks inside you. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start making some very significant changes. We'd see just how pathetic Chloe thought I was when reality came crashing down on her perfect, newlywed life. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I just sat there in my office, staring at that list, drinking the whiskey, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest where my heart used to be. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And for the first time since seeing that wedding photo, I felt completely calm. Almost eerily calm. Like I'd finally accepted a truth I'd been avoiding for too long. My daughter didn't want me in her life. She'd made that crystal clear. So, I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. A life completely free from her pathetic, controlling father. The first thing I did that morning was call the luxury resort in the Maldives. The €15,000 surprise honeymoon I'd been so excited to give them. "Hi, I need to cancel a reservation under the name Chloe Carter," I said to the receptionist. When she asked if I wanted to reschedule, I didn't hesitate. No. Complete cancellation. Refund everything back to my credit card. There was a pause. She informed me that due to the cancellation policy, I'd only get back about 60%. I didn't care. I just wanted it gone. Wanted every single connection to their perfect wedding severed. Next, I logged into the joint bank account. The one where I'd been depositing €500 every month, like clockwork, for years. I transferred every single cent back to my personal account. All €20,000 of it. Watching the balance drop to zero gave me a satisfaction I didn't know I was capable of feeling. Then, I went through every monthly bill I'd been paying for Chloe. Her phone plan, her car insurance, her streaming subscriptions, her gym membership, all of it. I called each company, one by one, to cancel or remove my payment information. "But sir, this will result in service interruption," one customer service rep warned me. "That's exactly what I want." "Thank you," I replied, and hung up. The hardest part, the nuclear option, was the house. That beautiful 3-bedroom house I'd bought for her graduation. The one that was still legally in my name because we'd never completed the paperwork transfer. I called my real estate agent, Linda, who'd helped me buy the property 3 years ago. I told her I wanted to put it on the market immediately. "William, are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice concerned. "I thought this was your daughter's house." I explained the whole brutal situation to her. How Chloe got married without inviting me. How she called me pathetic. How her husband physically pushed me. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Listen, I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow. We can probably get $280,000 for it in this market." Which meant I'd actually make a profit. Not that the money mattered anymore. It was the principle. I spent the rest of that day in a strange, focused productivity. Organizing documents, signing forms, making calls. Systematically dismantling every single piece of financial support I'd built for Chloe over the years. My phone rang several times, Chloe's name flashing on the screen, but I didn't answer. I just let it go to voicemail. I didn't bother listening to the messages. That evening, exactly 1 week after Chloe's wedding, after everything was cancelled and the house listing was live, I sent her a single text message: "You said I was pathetic and not needed in your life. I've accepted that. You and Trent are on your own now. Don't contact me again." And then, I did something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I blocked her number. Blocked her on every social media platform. Deleted every photo of her from my phone. I sat there in the silence of my empty house, feeling simultaneously devastated and liberated. Part of me expected to break down, to cry, to regret everything and undo it all. But instead, I just felt numb. Like I'd amputated a diseased limb to save the rest of my body. My daughter wanted to be free of me. And now, she was completely and utterly free. And soon, she'd learn what that freedom actually cost. For 3 months, I heard nothing from Chloe. And honestly, I didn't expect to. I'd moved on. Started going to therapy. Reconnected with old friends I'd neglected over the years. I even went on a few dates. For the first time in 15 years, I was living for myself instead of for someone who clearly didn't appreciate it. The house sold in 6 weeks for $275,000. I used the profit to finally book that trip to Japan I'd been dreaming about for years, but always postponed because Chloe needed something. My therapist told me I was processing grief. That cutting off your child is like a death in the family. And she was right. I was grieving the daughter I thought I had. Mourning the relationship I thought we'd built. But I was also healing, slowly but surely. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in late October, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, there stood Chloe. And I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying for days. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing sweatpants and an old jacket I remembered buying her years ago. Tato, she whispered, using the Ukrainian word for dad that she hadn't called me since she was a little girl. And my heart, that traitorous organ, immediately started breaking all over again. I stood there in the doorway for a long moment. Every fiber of my being wanted to pull her into a hug. To tell her everything was okay. To be the dad I'd always been. But I couldn't. Not after what she'd done. Not after how she'd made me feel. "What do you want, Chloe?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral, emotionless. And then she started crying. Actual sobs that shook her whole body. "Can I please come in? I need to tell you something," she begged. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on my couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies together when she was young, and she told me everything. How Trent had been using her. How he'd systematically isolated her from everyone who cared about her. How he convinced her that I was toxic and controlling, when really, he was the one manipulating her. "He only wanted me for money, Dad," she said through tears. And when he found the house was sold, and the bank account was empty, and there was no honeymoon, he changed completely. Apparently, Trent had started becoming verbally abusive, calling her stupid for letting me take everything, blaming her for their financial problems. Then, 2 weeks ago, she discovered he was cheating on her with another woman, someone with a wealthy family. He'd already moved out and filed for divorce. I was so stupid. You were right about him. You were right about everything. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, she cried, reaching for my hand. But I pulled back. I looked at this broken young woman on my couch. My daughter. The girl I'd raised and loved and sacrificed everything for. And I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Love. Anger. Pity. Resentment. All swirling together in my chest. "Chloe, I appreciate you coming here and apologizing. I really do," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. "But you didn't just exclude me from your wedding. You called me pathetic. You stood there while your husband assaulted me. You chose a man who disrespected me over your own father who gave you everything." She was sobbing harder now, saying she knew. She knew she'd messed up, begging for forgiveness, asking if we could start over. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain. I said the hardest words I've ever had to say. Chloe, I love you. I will always love you because you're my daughter. But love isn't enough anymore. You broke something between us that can't be fixed with a simple apology. I turned to face her. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it's going to take time. A lot of time. And it's going to require you to prove, through actions, not just words, that you actually value me as your father. I'm not going to be your ATM or your safety net anymore. I'm not going to drop everything to fix your problems. She nodded, mascara running down her face, and asked, "Does this mean you're giving me another chance?" I sighed deeply. It means I'm willing to try. But we're starting from zero. You want to see me? You call and we schedule something. You want my help? You ask respectfully and understand I might say no. And most importantly, you need to get yourself together. Get therapy. Figure out who you are without Trent, or without me rescuing you. I walked her to the door. Before she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I'll prove I can change. I promise." I just nodded, watching her walk to her car in the rain. After she left, I sat back down on that couch and let myself cry for the first time in months. Not tears of sadness, but of release. Because I'd finally set boundaries. Finally stood up for myself. Finally realized that being a good father doesn't mean being a doormat. The road ahead would be long and complicated, but at least now, it would be on my terms. If you've ever had to make such a painful choice, or found yourself in a similar impossible situation, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts. How would you have handled this? Let me know in the comments below.